Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Bruen, and we're here with a very special guest this week, actor Will O'Donnell. Will, thanks so much for taking the time this week.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Now, we've known each other a long time, obviously recently connected for this interview, so it's great to kind of get back here. And we obviously went to school together, junior high, many moons ago. And you've accomplished so much, since the last time that we've spoken. So first and foremost, thank you for all of your contributions in the world of entertainment. You've done so much, and you've got so much on the burner ready to go. So I want to thank you for that.
No, it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been I think we've known each other about 30 years now.
Right.
It's we've outgrown a lot of different things in the entertainment world. So it's entertainment has certainly changed. But I remember from the get-go, you have always been big on the entertainment side, especially obviously wrestling. So I think that's I did come across an old photo of us, me at one of your wrestling pay-per-view parties many years ago.
Yeah. I used to have the monthly pay-per-view parties with, friends from school like yourself, and fond memories to look back on for sure. It was a different time, and I remember we had the talk show for Cox Cable for a little while there. I used to do an in-studio wrestling show, and
Yep.
you came in a couple times there as a cameraman to
I was actually your very first cameraman for that.
Yes, you were. Yep. And man, look what you've done since then, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy how things have progressed for all those years.
Yeah. So, let's start from the beginning. Growing up as a kid, or even into your adult life, what were some of the first films that you've seen, and what were some of your favorite films?
Oh man, so I mean, a kid from the '80s, right? It is, I mean, the '80s movies, and I talk about this a lot. At the time, you know, the movies of the '80s were most that was they were story driven. A lot of them were corny. They were really experimenting on new camera techniques. Obviously the introduction of the late '80s, early '90s of CGI and stuff like that. So. Um, you know, your classics that are probably not classics to a lot of people. One of my favorite movies of the '80s is the movie Little Monsters. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Absolutely.
Howie Mandel played Maurice. I actually go out to Comic Cons every once in a while, and I have a full Maurice cosplay because that's how much, for some reason, Maurice meant a lot to me as a kid. Kind of saving Brian from his childhood and stuff like that. So that was what a standout movie for me, and I've got a great story for a sequel. So if anybody's listening, let me know down the road. I need a producer on this one. But other '80s movies. I mean, your classics: Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, Terminator. All of those. That just defined '80s. Goonies, without a doubt. I mean, if you look behind me, you'll see I actually have a lot of movie props that I collect and stuff. I don't know if you can kind of see them, but I've got a whole shelf dedicated to the Goonies. Indiana Jones. I mean, the original trilogy, obviously controversial for the other two, but I personally enjoy all of them. I mean, Indy's indie no matter what for me, and then Star Wars. I mean, it's just some movies though I've gone back, that were like childhood fondness, and you try to introduce it to somebody else, and you're like, this is one of the great, and I'm sure you've probably experienced this was one of the greatest movies, and you probably haven't seen it yourself in 30 years, and then you sit down and you're like, wow, my memory recollection of this is a little bit different than what is currently on the screen.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that happens, but like you said, I mean, some of these characters that they stick with you. They're in your mind, and they become a part of you, and when you see it again, it takes you back to that time period. It takes you back to that place, and that's what's nice about the movies and about the films is you're able to kind of go back in time, go back to your childhood just by reliving a small moment or a small character like that. So, dressing up at a Comic Con, because that moment, that character, it meant a lot to you at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I think in life, a lot of times we do things that try to bring us back to those moments in of being a child. I mean, it was a carefree world back then, right? What did we have to worry about? Like we'd get up in the morning super early, we'd go make a bowl of cereal, maybe sit in front of the television for Saturday morning cartoons, and the list of demands and responsibilities as a kid were so minimal. So like anything that we can do to bring ourselves back to those moments of like, would trigger those memories and go, yeah, I remember where I was when I first watched that movie. I mean, you know, I think the very first movie I saw in theaters was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, I think. And so like, I still, I remember sitting there and, I can say like, I've seen Jurassic Park. I mean, in the early 90s, I mean, it was redefining cinema and what it did. And you could go, I remember seeing that in the cinema. I remember what joy that brought to me, and that kind of what movies, what television, what emotions they can bring to people, and you can sit down and look at this giant screen and be immersed in somebody else's world.
All right. So, at what point did you decide that you wanted to give it a shot yourself? When did you decide that, what, maybe this acting thing, maybe this is for me?
That's a great question. I will say without a doubt, growing up, I there was always that burning desire for me to want to do it, right? And it was just, just the way life happens, right? Like I always wanted to act since I was probably like 8 years old. But what's the first thing you probably hear from parents, when anybody's like, "Oh, I want to get into the arts," it's like get a real job, right?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, it is not a lucrative business. It is for some, but it is a long grind to get there. So at a very young age, I wanted to do it. I wanted to be an actor, but life had other decisions and choices for me. So as I grew older, I kind of didn't know fully what I wanted to do in that real job department. So I joined the military, and I, went off and, I'm a Air Force veteran of two wars, and I did all that fun stuff, and I was trying to just make my way in the world of not knowing what I wanted to do. So I got out of the military, and a bunch of military veterans were like, what skill sets did we learn from the military, and what can we use to apply? And I've always been into the photography world. I've always done videography. I've always enjoyed it. And we started a small drone business, me and a bunch of veterans. The very first thing we got involved with was entertainment drones, and so we're talking like the early days of drone flying for entertainment purposes, about 2012 2014 timeframe, when the first like DJI drone was coming out, and nobody really knew what you could do with it. But the very first DJI drone didn't even have a camera on it. People mounted GoPro cameras. Then some of the drones that could actually fly a real camera were about the size of like a small miniature refrigerator, right? I mean, massive, massive things. So we got involved with that on the cinematography side, doing stuff, and that's where I won my primetime Emmy award, was for the cinema. And interestingly enough, that was the defining moment for me, where I said, you know what? I've done the real job business. I've gotten to the height of one of the most prestigious awards. I'm going to do something for myself, and I'm going to get back to, again, what I truly wanted to do when I was a kid, and I'm going to just get into the acting world. And it was really, I mean, I think the problem with a lot of people is, imposter syndrome. Do I belong here? Am I good enough? Can I do it? And I think, thankfully, and not everybody has the opportunity, the Emmy Award gave me the cojones to actually go, you know what? I do belong. I've earned my spot. Now let me do what I truly should have done a long time ago. Now, they say, and this was only back in 2019. So, I was a late comer to the acting world, but I literally took all of my energy of everything I was doing and just revectored it towards acting. And I said, if I can do this, and I can be in the military, and I can go and I can win an Emmy award, then I have the skills to figure out this industry, and I can do this. Like, so I just devoted everything I could to get training, because obviously that's a big piece to it, is proper training that you can get, to be a better actor. And so I focused everything I could. I live out in England. Obviously, there's a couple different reasons for that, but one major one is there's just so much American production moving over here, that when they're looking for authentic Americans, there's less of us out here. So if I have to play a poker hand, I might as well play a poker hand that gives me a better opportunity, right? So if there's only four kings in the deck and I can start with two, that's pretty good, right? So if I'm over in Hollywood or Atlanta or somewhere else, yeah, there's more of me, more competition, but you know, of course, obviously, I want my talent and acting to shine no matter where I am, but if I can stack the deck however I can, I might as well. But that was to answer long-winded to answer your question. It was only in about 2019. I actually won the Emmy, switched into the acting role, ended up getting a lead role in a pilot for a TV series, and that TV series ended up finishing post production in January of 2020. And if anybody remembers 2020, it didn't involve much going out of the house. So the production got shelved, almost immediately. It was like, hey, this is a great pilot. Production's halted. Things aren't getting filmed right now due to COVID. And, maybe we'll explore it later on. And that's kind of just the death signal of a production, is when something gets shelved. It usually never makes its way back out. So that's okay, because, I still just continued to grind, and here I am, years later, and things are just kind of cranking now.
Yeah, and there's the primetime Emmy on display behind you there, for what you received from Carpool Karaoke. You know, that experience, kind of go back to that moment where you found out that you are a primetime Emmy award winner. That very moment, what did it feel like? What was it like for you?
An out of body experience. It was like nothing. I mean, man, I've won things before, little league trophies. I don't know. I've won awards. I've done, won awards and stuff in the military, in my time. But like, this was like nothing else I've ever experienced. In fact, I am the first drone pilot to ever win an Emmy award. So I'm like, historically, the very first drone camera guy to win one. And it was funny because I did this production, and I know a lot of people just say, "Oh, carpool karaoke, it's just a bunch of GoPros in the car." But no, the episode I did was the Celine Dion episode, where I actually had to fly the drone in the Bellagio fountains and dodge all of the water streams and get aerial shots of Celine Dion and James Corden singing "My Heart Will Go On" in the Bellagio fountain, as though it's like the Titanic. And
Right.
weeks went by, months went by, and I get a text message, and it said, "Hey, I need your address because you've been nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award, and they need to send the ticket to attend the Emmys." And I look at this text, and number one, I didn't know who it was from, and I go, "Wow, they are getting really elaborate with scams." Like, I was waiting for the next, if I responded to say, "Oh, and let's talk about your car's extended warranty." They they found me, but I was like, this is a really weird scam. I'm not just going to give this person my home address. And so I called the number. It was a guy that I had actually worked on the production with, and he was like, "No, it's legit. You've been nominated for this Emmy, and you get to actually attend the Emmy Awards." So I lived in Las Vegas at the time. I drove out to Los Angeles, and I'll tell you, that weekend I got an extremely elaborate hotel suite. Now I was like, if I'm gonna live it up, I'm gonna live it up. But if I walk away not winning an Emmy and I come back to my really expensive hotel suite, it's going to hurt, right? And obviously, everybody that gets nominated, they all are deserving of the award. So even just getting nominated, you're in a select few of people that recognize you as one of your peers. Like, that's the big thing with the Academy Awards, is it's not just recognition by, you know, anybody. It's specific to the people that are in your peer group, and that's kind of like that level of acceptance of like I belong. So even just getting nominated, phenomenal. But you're sitting in the audience, and it is no kidding as real as you see on TV. We don't know we're going to win. So you're watching the show in the audience, and your category comes up, and they list out the names, and you're sitting there and you're waiting, and then all of a sudden they open the envelope, and everyone's waiting, and then you hear it, and just a piece of it is like your brain goes, did I hear that right? Right? Is that real? Like, am I going to stand up and make a fool out of myself? Is this really? It's like you check and you're looking at the screen and making sure your name that's you, and you get up and you start walking, and then I'm walking down the theater, and you get to the end, and I'm in my a full tux, and I've got tuxedo shoes on, which don't have a lot of good grip on them anyway. They got that nice like kind of slick sole. You get to the end, and the stairs are completely slick stairs, and I'm like, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, because like, and I'm just taking one step at a time. But I mean, that entire thing, and then you get the Emmy, you go in the back, you do an interview immediately where you get to thank people that you might not have thanked while you were on stage, or if you're part of a group, which we were part of a bigger group. So like one person spoke on stage, but then in the back, it gives everybody an opportunity to thank other people, right? And then they post it on the website, and then from there you go back and you actually sign an agreement for your Emmy award, that you're receiving it, because technically the Emmy is still owned by the Academy. So I can air it to my children or give it away when I die, but I can't sell it. So like on the bottom of the Emmy is like this full disclaimer that basically says, I don't know if that's upside down, it is. So it's like a full disclaimer that says like, I do not own this. It's basically in the property of the Academy.
Wow.
Um, and so you have to sign this like legal contract for it. I don't want that to fall. So you have to sign this legal contract for it. And then you go to this whole press room, and I mean it is wild. I mean, tons of pictures. Everyone's capturing pictures of all the award winners, and then they're just picking questions left and right. And this was like, obviously this is I wasn't an actor at the time, so this was my first real experience of like press. Like I am the target of all of these questions. I'm the center, and it is so surreal because it's just like, oh, what's the hardest part you had working on that production? What came easy? How do you feel? All this stuff, and then you're gone in total for probably like 30 minutes doing all of this stuff. And then they release you back, and you get to just go back to the Emmys, and you just kind of sneak back in the theater and go and take your seat. And there you are, just holding the Emmy award. Right. And like, it's just this whirlwind out of body experience. And you're just holding the Emmy like during the whole rest of it, just going like, I can't believe this is real. This is unbelievable. Then once the Emmys are over, you immediately go outside and you go to the governor's ball. And the governor's ball is like the big, how do you do a fair, event, like, where you go in, and I mean, it was magic. It was magic. I think there was like these opera singers that were like three tiers up, all singing. It felt like something out of like Fifth Element. It was just like, and you walk in, they hand you champagne, and it's crazy because everyone's walking around like, some winners, some nominees, some just there for the show and whatnot. But like in one room, like there's hundreds of like Emmy winners for all the different categories, and people are just walking around, and then like people would just go to their table and they just leave their Emmy on the table and just walk away to go get food. And like, there's just unattended Emmy awards. And I'm just like, it was like, I don't want to put this down. I don't know if I'm going to come back and it's still going to be here. Not that it was stolen, but is it still going to be here? Because did this really happen? It was so out of body, like just like weird. And then uh, after that, it was we had an after party. James Corden put on an after party at one of his at a bar in Los Angeles and Hollywood, and everybody that was anybody was invited. And so like you're walking around and you're like, oh man, like this is great. Like I love this actor, I love this person as well. And you'd walk up and as a weird kind of mix because you're in the industry, but you're still a fan of their work, right? And you'd go up and go, "Hey, man, you mind if I get a picture with you? Can I just get a selfie?" And a lot of times they'd go, "Yeah, of course, man. You're the one holding the Emmy. Of course you can." So like it was a feeling of acceptance. So I guess that long-winded answer to magic, out of body, and acceptance all at the same time. Like that's what it felt like, and it felt like the not condoning drugs, not that I've even ever done them or confirming that. It was the best drug you could ever have. It was just endorphins of just magnitudes of going, I need to be back here. I need to find a way to get back. Like I've always described it, and this is the nerd in me. If you've seen Star Trek Generations, which was the first, you know, the kind of fusion of the original series and the Next Generation,
Yeah.
with Doctor Soren and the Nexus, right? So he experienced the Nexus as a kid, and all he just devoted his whole life to getting back to that magic, getting back to that moment. And so like going there and getting a taste of it and going, this I belong here. I should be here. I need to get back here, and I will do what I can to get back here. And it's not that I'm searching for awards. I mean, the awards are always great, right? It's a recognition, but that's the feeling. It's like nothing I've ever experienced of just going, this is it. This is where I need to get back to. Even if it's just I'm not even nominated, I can go there as a ticket holder, right? But like just being accepted in a field of what you have dreamed about. And that was for cinematography. Obviously, getting a recognition for acting sometime in the future would be even better. But that is it's magic in every sense, I guess.
Yeah, and sometimes getting a small taste like that will, basically motivate you to go even further, like you said. So, by getting that small taste, you're able to realize like, okay, now I'm going to really put 100% into this, and looked at all you've done since then. So it's really it shows that it does work if you put your mind to it, and you really just kind of keep your head down and work hard at it, and eventually it will come for those that are looking to move ahead in some of these projects. And when it comes to drone testing, you were a big part in that as well with NASA and FAA. Why don't you kind of go into that history and those experiences with that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So as I said, leaving the military, we started that drone company. Now, when we first got into the entertainment world of just doing film and TV using drones, as the drone technology and the drone kind of landscape started to really mature, everyone was flooding into the entertainment world. And so, kind of as a business decision, it wasn't the most marketable and profitable thing to do anymore because everybody was jumping in and prices were just getting driven down to the lowest common denominator of price. So we had to really kind of start to diversify what we were doing, and we kind of made a very big pivot into industrial inspection, power line inspection, oil and pipeline inspection, things that are need to get done and have been done for years, these inspections, but finding more efficient ways to do them, utilizing like artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms. And then as a result, the FAA got involved with kind of, where's the future landscape of the drone world is going to go in what they call beyond visual line of sight flying. So right now, for the most part, a lot of drones in America have to be flown within visual line of sight, right? So you have to be able to actively see the drone and avoid any other aircraft that might be in the area. So see and avoid. Now, with beyond visual line of sight flying, you have to find other ways to perform that see and avoid capability in accordance with FAA regulations because you are an actual FAA drone pilot, right? So you get a certification and all that stuff. Then down the road, NASA had come along because NASA was actually kind of picked to kind of look at where the future of the national airspace, will go for like people being able to fly drones from one city to another. Like if you wanted a real package delivery, not just like local from like your local Amazon hub to your house, but like talking about like Los Angeles to Las Vegas. Like how would they go about doing large drone capabilities? And that's where NASA came in because they were actually going to start doing testing on their the national airspace and the UTM for Universal Traffic Management. I might have gotten that acronym wrong at this point. It's been many years, but so I was involved in a lot of their early testing. So I was part of an FAA test called UPP, and then I was also part of a NASA drone test called TCL4. And these were all like big, multi-month tests. One of them was in Reno, Nevada, for instance, and we had 13 different drone companies and service providers all participating in being able to test drone deconfliction. So essentially, you would all in an urban area, because they wanted to make sure that if you have hundreds of drones flying in an urban area, how are you going to deconflict airspace and make sure that drones aren't crashing into each other, drones aren't falling out of the sky on people, drones aren't crashing into passenger aircraft, which would be the worst of the kind of things that could happen. And so all of that, and so it was a multi-month test where I was involved heavily with the FAA, NASA, as oddly enough an official like NASA test pilot, but on the ground doing drone stuff. Um, I'm sure a lot of the real bigger NASA test pilots that are in the aircraft doing NASA testing probably would frown on me using that term, but it is by all definitions. I was part of the NASA test as a drone pilot, but it was an exciting time. I mean, we were really at the forefront of kind of drone regulations, drone technology, some of the stuff that we were incorporating onto our drone to be able to minimize risk on being able to fly a drone. And the company I was the chief operating officer for and helped to found that company actually got one of the largest drone beyond visual line of sight waivers ever issued by the FAA at the time, and it was a 98-mile beyond visual line of sight. So we were able to fly 98 miles away from our drone station, um, anywhere along an oil pipeline, and we were doing oil pipeline inspection for Shell Oil. And so we were able to make accurate calls on any types of issues on the pipeline, leaks, vegetation, encroachment, anything like that that would potentially put the public at risk, which they have to do those inspections anyway. But in some of the more hazardous areas, they do them with manned aircraft, but they fly very low, like Cessnas. And in some of the areas we would fly, there was actual fatalities in the past with these manned aircraft where they would fly into the sides of mountains. And so we were hoping to, and we did, we came in and helped to minimize manned aviation risk in what we were doing, and really spearheading a lot of the movement of these FAA regulations. But we were really kind of, having to be creative on what we did in incorporating new technologies. One of them was passed by the FAA and NASA during one of these tests was a specialized box that has multiple cameras on it that could scan the airspace, detect an aircraft's range bearing and altitude, and then talk to the drone itself and auto kind of correct where the drone's flying, lower its altitude, all completely autonomously. Because if you didn't have controller, if your controller disconnected, you still need to make sure that you're just not, being an unsafe flight. So I mean, it was an incredible time for years of really kind of helping to pave the way for what is kind of the drone landscape now. It's been slow moving. Obviously, they're the FAA, and they like to make things as safe as possible for passenger aircraft. People flying all over the place and the people on the ground. So it's been slow moving, but I can say that like it was just an incredible kind of experience being involved with NASA, being involved with the FAA, and doing a lot of those testings.
It's incredible work, and you got to be obviously so precise. I mean, it's really takes a lot of training to get to the point where you have gotten to. So it's very impressive.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, it's cool to look back on it. And I think the thing is, it's like, sometimes I look back and I'm like, man, I have lived so many lives in just a short amount of time, like, and really kind of just been on the forefront of, I'm a big tech guy. I love technology. So, it's funny to, be an actor now and just kind of not have to worry about all of the tech side of things, and just kind of like can really just focus on human beings and emotions, and something that, like, for years, like especially in the military, right, like they don't care about emotions, like you do your job. But now I have to like focus on a whole different aspect of humanity.
Yeah. And one of the other aspects of your work that you've been a part of, Farewell, My Lover. Let's talk about that. What that process was like being on that project. It's a virtual drama. So, for the fans that aren't familiar with what that is, what that means, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so slight correction, it's a vertical drama.
Oh,
So
okay. All right.
a little bit different. So um oddly, and it's funny that that's out of all of the different acting roles I've done in bigger things, um, the vertical drama world is a very interesting landscape, and really, again, kind of paving the way into a new format and a new medium. So, long story short, is vertical dramas are designed for people that watch their entertainment on a cell phone, and hold their phone right in a standard, like not having to turn their phone sideways, but hold it normally, right?
Right.
Uh, a lot of a lot of countries and a lot of citizens, especially Southeast Asia, um, they might not even have a family television at this point. Not due to poorness or their nation. It's just the way that culture and society has evolved is everybody has a cell phone. So why have a living room television when you could just watch whatever you want whenever you want it? So a lot of this came out of China, came out of Southeast Asia for the purposes of, if how can we target an audience directly to what they want to watch and how they want to watch it. And I know people have said, well, what's so hard about turning your phone to the side? Nothing, but why not make it easier? And it is funny because when you walk on set for a vertical drama, and just an understanding of it, um, all it is, instead of a 16 by 9 aspect ratio camera, the camera is actually just turned on its side. So you're still using top end cinema cameras, RELXs, red dragon cameras, or different reds. Like, you're using top end cinema cameras, but it's just turned on its side. So the quality doesn't diminish. It's just a completely different aspect ratio. And it's also broken up into episodic. It's filmed like a movie, but it's broken up into episodes, about 2 minute long episodes, to try to capture the viewer. And you've probably seen them on social media, where it's some very, unfortunately, I'm not knocking the industry, because I've done a few of them, generally cheesy type films. Very much soap opera like, heightened acting. And there's reasons for that. It's almost like the kind of Mexican soap opera where everything's very much like elevated for like overacting, it feels like. But that's the kind of thing that it's really taken shape into that market, because that's what people want to see. Because ultimately they'll give about out like 2 to 3, maybe 4 episodes for free, and then they're like, "Hey, if you want to watch more, download the app." And then you download the app, and they'll give you a couple more for free. And then they're like, "Oh, if you want to watch more, just kind of like pay the jukebox, right?" And so the idea is like put tokens in, and you can watch the next episode. A few more you can watch, or you can pay the VIP package, and you can get an unlimited amount of those for the month of, for the entire month. Um, it's an interesting kind of spin off in the entertainment world, because, originally, almost only like a year ago, frowned upon. People are like, oh, this vertical drama thing, not going to make it, not going to stand out. But now they're making estimates that within the next 2 years, it'll be a $16 billion industry. So money is flowing into the vertical drama space, so much so that a lot of larger studios are actually getting involved in vertical format. So right now, the majority of it is vertical dramas. So it's very much just in the form of like very heightened soap opera. Like, oh my God, the boss is CEO. The homeless boss is also the CEO, or whatever. Stuff like that. And they'll just ridiculous, kind of scripts with ridiculous stories. everyone ends on a cliffhanger because, obviously when you have 2 minutes, you want them to watch the next episode. So, the entire idea for like storytelling, writing, all of that stuff has to completely change compared to what you have in the industry now. You don't have, in your standard feature film, it's a 3-act format generally. So you'll have, the story split up into 3 acts, conflict resolution, the hero's journey, all of that stuff in your standard format. Vertical dramas, everything, throw it out the window. Write something that can capture attention for 2 minutes, leave them on a cliffhanger so that they want to watch the next episode. And then, ultimately, these vertical drama apps that you can download, they need, if you're paying a VIP package and you're paying $20 a month to watch unlimited, you need content. So it's not always about the best content. It's just about content, because the second you run out of stuff to watch, you're going to go, oh, well, I'm just going to cancel my membership. But as long as just stuff keeps getting just fed to you and fed to you, you'll go, oh, what's the next? Oh, this is cool. Like Farewell, My Lover. And so, that's, so what's interesting about it, it's still acting. It's still, you're still on set. It's treated like any other film. In fact, some of them are run better than some feature films I've been on that are, horizontal format. It's just, you get to play around a little bit. It is, you get to have fun. It's weird because, like, sometimes overacting can come across as bad acting. So if somebody watches something that, I might have done vertically, I try to keep it grounded, but at the same time, you have to sometimes do things that are just going to be attention grabbers, that are going to be the thing that's like just ludicrous, but it's fun. It's a fun time. I mean, acting for the actor, it should be fun first above anything else. And so it is funny that you mentioned "Farewell, My Lover" as the first thing. But it is a new format. It is paving the way of mobile entertainment. It's going to be around for a little bit. Major studios are getting involved in it, so you're going to start seeing better versions of it, though. Right now, it's interestingly enough, the vast majority of the productions prior to like 6 months ago were very much coming out of China. So China had production teams all over the world. They were writing a lot of the scripts in Chinese, and then it was getting translated to English. So you'd get the script and you'd go, oh, I don't know what this means, because it's obviously lost in translation, and so you'd have to kind of play around with it a little bit, make it sound a little bit more kind of real in its sense. But it is it's around to stay, and I think you'll start getting more better content out there in the next kind of couple of years as more and more people are pivoting to that format.
And you've also dabbled on the other side of things with voice acting, some commercial work, obviously, traveler's insurance as an example. What is it like going into something like that where you're using your voice rather than being on screen? What are some of the differences that you can kind of explain to the fans of just the process and getting it done?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one with travelers insurance. It was great working with them. Uh, so originally, prior to the voice acting role that I did get for travelers insurance, it was it started off with an acting audition. And so I actually went in there to audition as the truck driver in the commercial that I'm voicing over. And so I went in there, and the way that like commercial adverts work on the casting is you have your casting director, you have the director, and you also have the brand client, because you're representing a brand. So all three of those people have to be in agreement in order for you to get a role. So sometimes you can go in there and you can be the best actor in the world, and you can impress the director, and the client goes, nah, I don't like the color of his hair. It won't match kind of the rest of the theme of who we're looking for, whatever it might be. There, it could be a million different reasons as to why the brand might not want you. You might have too deep a voice. You might have performed well, but your voice comes across, and they might go, well, that might scare people. Whatever it might be. And so in order to get all three of those in alignment, That's generally how you get the job, is that all of them have to be like, yeah, that's my guy, with no question. In this case, I went in there for an acting role. I ended up leaving. A few days later, I was notified I did not get the role, and I was like, okay, cool, out of sight, out of mind. I mean, in this industry, you have to be on top of, you have to, be accepting of no's. There's more no's than yeses, and it's not a dig on your kind of acting, acting chops, or how good you are. It's just sometimes things don't work out. Sometimes you don't have the right look. Sometimes they might want somebody with a beard and you don't have one at the time, and they don't have time for you to grow one, and the budget might not allow for whatever it might be. And so you just have to realize, like, hey, like, I didn't get it, I just move on to the next thing. So I knew that they went and they filmed this commercial in Spain, because I knew the dates and stuff, and they filmed it, and it was no kidding, like 2 months later I get a call from my agent, and she was just like, hey, Travelers Insurance wants you to do the voiceover for this commercial. They've got two other people lined up, possibly between you and somebody else, or two people total. And so, like, they want you to submit another audition with this script, just doing voiceover. So I did that one from home, just as a mock audition for them. They judged both of us, and they were like, yeah, we'll go with him. So then I had to go down to London, to once I got booked on that, and I met the director, and he was like, hey, I wanted you from the beginning. Unfortunately, it just didn't go that way, but guess what? I got you in the end. So welcome aboard. And so then there I am in a sound booth, and it's interesting because when you're acting out there in person, you're engaging generally within a story of with somebody else, or even if you're by yourself acting, you are still immersed in a universe, right? So it's a little bit different on the voice acting world, because now you're in a sound booth, and you are trying your best to keep that headspace of going, all right, I still need to hit the emotion, I still need to have it feel real. um, and that's the big piece, is like, anybody can say words. You can memorize words, you can say words. It's really kind of taking the knowledge that's here, the words that are here, and instead of just sending it from here to your mouth, you have to have it send it from here through the heart and then out your mouth,
Yeah.
and put the emotion into it, and really think, in this case, for the Travelers Insurance, I was playing the role, the voiceover role, of the real guy that got scammed in a shipping scam as a truck driver. And so it was voicing over while this other guy was doing all of the visuals and loading stuff into a truck and driving the truck and checking his phone. I had to be the voice of, like, so a couple months ago, I'm hauling generators to Ohio, and and stuff like that, and really kind of just feel and believe that, like, that's me as a character doing all that. And so it was funny because, I mean, you go down there and you're there for a couple hours, and you're doing so many different versions of it. All right, give us just another read. Try to flatten it out a little bit, and it's just like, all right, so a couple months ago, nope, flatten it out more. Okay, so a couple months ago, I'm hauling generators. All right, let's kick that up one notch. And it's just like, okay, so a couple months ago, it's just like very, very, but these guys that are running this production, like, they've got such a fine-tuned ear to what they want, right? And even in me as an actor, it's tough to sometimes just go, all right, like, because if I'm living in a moment, I can deliver something, and if a director gives me notes, I can kind of flex and live in that moment with those notes. But, like, as a voice actor, it's challenging, and you still try to just not be in a sound booth when you're doing it. So that gets all submitted, and then, like, no kidding, like 2 weeks later, they're like, hey, Will, can you come back down to London, and can you just record, do just another session? And I went in there, they're like, yeah, everything was great except these two lines. And I'm like, okay, cool. And they're like, let's just really hit this one hard, so I could do those two lines, like, bunch of times. And they're like, all right, great. And so, like, that was it. Like, it's just like, sometimes you just need to fine tune and, kind of just really hit those small emotional notes, because ultimately, especially when you are doing voiceovers, when you're doing any types of commercials, you're representing a brand, and it's important to that brand to really represent them well. So like you really, it is a little stressful because like if I'm out there doing a feature film, and I don't know if you'll cover this later, but I'm in the Running Man, and that's a little bit different because I'm living in that universe compared to like I'm representing that brand. Travelers Insurance have been around for over 100 years. I did a Cheez It commercial. They're like 120 years old, and I'm like, I'm representing that and making sure I want this commercial to do well. I want people to go out and buy this product because they put their trust in me in either my voice or my face to represent them. So it's it's an added layer of just kind of weird but good stress. But the voiceover stuff, it's this is a huge market for voiceover. Um, and this is one of those cases. That voiceover work came from my agent as a result of an acting job that I didn't get. But a lot of people are doing voiceover stuff right from their house. I mean, they've built out sound booths, and the website voices.com. I think it's like 100 and something a year, and to get a membership to it. But then you could just be auditioning for voiceover stuff and doing it right from your house. And a lot of times, like, yes, it's good to get training, but there's plenty of jobs too that like may not even require anything but just being yourself. And especially for these advertisements, they want very kind of grounded people. Like, and if you could just, so yeah, the voiceover stuff is, it's a completely different beast. It's a completely different kind of understanding of what you're doing on the acting stuff. Unfortunately, I have yet to do like an anime or animation. I'd love to, because I think that would take it to another level where I am acting again more than I'm just kind of performing a voice with feeling, right? Like I can actually just, and you see that when people are in the booth, doing animation, and they're like really into it, and they're feeling that character and stuff like that. And I did that a little bit, for some of my other voice roles and stuff like that. Depending on what it was, I do every once in a while. I get an audition in for some voiceover stuff. I don't do them too often. I'm always told that I probably should do them more, just with like my voice and deeper voice and stuff. But I mean, ultimately, it's just a different form of acting that does, again, just like vertical dramas and stuff like that. It's just a different style, and you really have to just be able to just like kind of be flexible in your different ways that you're going to bring a character to life. And the voice acting it can be difficult, but it can be a lot of fun.
I'm glad that you brought that up with the, one of the websites that you can go and check out, for aspiring voice actors, because I am one of them, and it's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, but just never bit the bullet, never went for it, and mainly because I didn't really know how to go about it, So yeah, it's something I'm going to look into, and it's something that I would certainly love to do on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean it's and good luck with that. I mean that's awesome. I think
Thank
you
you.
do really well. I mean it's it's a lot of fun. Even just auditioning. Auditioning is fun for voice acting and acting in general. I mean somebody gets to see you create art with what you do, and you are the instrument. I was in band as in junior high school, but I was never any good at playing a real instrument, so I just became the instrument, I guess.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. So let's talk about it. The Running Man, the remake, huge opportunity for you. Kind of walk us through that process when you got that news and what that means for you.
Yeah, my my biggest production to date. I mean, it's like $120 million budget movie. Edgar Wright is just an absolute legend. I mean, with Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and Baby Driver, last night. And so, I mean, the Edgar's style is just amazing, and one point of clarification, interestingly enough, not a reboot, not a remake. Um,
Oh, not
it,
okay.
yeah, so it is a direct adaptation off of Stephen King's novel when he wrote under the pseudonym Richard Bachman. So it has in oddly enough, and it's just a weird point because a lot of people they know that obviously the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie is the 1980s The Running Man, which was a loose adaptation off of the novel, but took a lot of creative liberties. And so Edgar kind of, he read The Running Man as a kid, and he in his mind he's like always wanted to be able to do it in a truer fashion to the book than the original did. So he didn't really use the first movie as a template. So that's where, in just a weird kind of, it's semantics. It's as a result because you don't really use the first as a template. It's not a reboot because there was nothing from that original that was really taken. So it was just going back to the source material and being able to adapt it directly from the source as close to the book as possible. Now, obviously, the book took a different turn in the third act, and the final ending in the book's different. And I won't ruin it, no spoilers, but and then just for anybody that's read the book, there's certain ways that like you have to make certain changes, and you see that a lot. And I know it's a tough one. It's tough when you're a big fan of a major book or major series, and then they make a movie about it, and you're like, oh man, the book's so much better. It's just sometimes you have to make the create have those creative liberties because it'll help the flow of the film better. Like for instance, like one of my my favorite books is Ready Player One, and me personally, I really enjoyed the movie. It's a Steven Spielberg film. They took a lot of creative liberties, but when I first watched it, my first reaction was like, "Oh man, the book! Why couldn't they stick to the book?" But then you kind of watch it again, and you're like, "Yeah, if they stuck to the book, this would be like a 6 hour movie, and it wouldn't, it would just drag on, right?" So like you have to sometimes make those, kind of creative choices. So with this one, um, they wrapped filming earlier this year. They had to do some reshoots and some pickups, which is very common in the industry. If they want like a better angle, better look, or maybe this could have been done a little bit better. Maybe they want to add some more scenes just to fluff up certain things. So even though they wrapped earlier in the year, they reopened it for kind of some reshoots and pickups. And I got to go in. I got to go down to London for my audition for it. Smaller scene, single scene speaking lines. But going into the casting for it, I mean, this is my second biggest. I mean, I've done some big, auditions, but there's always that level of nervousness when you walk in. In fact, I will be honest, I absolutely bombed an audition earlier this year, maybe end of last year, for Masters of the Universe. It was, I mean, I'm a huge He-Man fan, so going into it, and this is the best part about the acting too. Is like I'm getting to live my childhood dreams again, like all the stuff I was like growing up with that they're bringing back, and I'm like, but you go in there with like such nervousness, and they're like, oh, are you familiar with the franchise? And like, yeah, you have no idea. Like I had the Castle Grayskull as a kid, like, and I forgot my lines, and I kind of got dry mouth, and I was just kind of like really nervous, and like I don't think I've ever done that before at an audition where I just for some reason shut down. And I think it was because it was such a big project. Um, Now for the Running Man, I kind of took that as a learning lesson of what I did with Masters of the Universe, and I said, you know what, I'm going to overly prepare for this. I am going to, and as I should, it's my craft, it's my, and I do, but you always, when you go in and do an audition, you're always kind of like second guess and go, have I done enough? Have I prepared enough? Last night when I was sitting on the couch relaxing and decided to watch a movie, should I have just been going over my lines more? And there's a fine point where you can kill something to death, versus like not doing it enough. And I know when I walked out of the Running Man audition, I said I left everything out on the field, right? And whatever comes of it, I may not get this role. It may go to somebody else. I may not have delivered it the way they wanted to, or I may not have the right look that they wanted. But I know that I did everything I could, and I'm proud of my performance. And ultimately, no matter what, that casting director got to see me, and so did the producer of the film as well. And so next day, I got an email that said, "Hey, we really loved Will's performance, and we'd like to consider him. Let's pencil him in." And I'm like, "Oh man, my agent always tells me, she's like, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Just get it out of your head." And it's hard. I mean, when you're like on the cusp of something that you just have so much passion for, like, I mean, I get to be. I mean, although it's not a reboot or remake, I still get to be in something that is so grounded in Arnold Schwarzenegger lore, right? And and be like, yes, like there's so many people that love The Running Man. There's so many people that love Edgar Wright. Like, these two are coming together, and I get to be part of this magic. And like, even as I mentioned, and I didn't get to meet Josh Brolin, but like I mentioned the Goonies earlier, and I'm like, Josh Brolin's in this film. Like, it's kind of like that 6 degrees of separation for all of my childhood love. And I was like,
Yeah.
Josh Brolin was in Goonies, but my scene, it filmed on the Warner Brothers backlot, which is cool. So like most people that come to England, they're familiar with Warner Brothers because you can go to the Harry Potter tours, which is on the Warner Brothers lot. But then behind the Harry Potter kind of tourist area is the official studios, and I got to go to the one of the studios, and I mean, I've done a lot of on location filming for film and television, but like this was my first major studio production, and it's a I mean, it's a dream come true. I mean, you walk into a massive soundstage, and you are just like, oh wow, like I feel like I'm literally in another universe. Like I'm not, you know, you're not in Kansas anymore. It's just like I was immediately transported to, dystopian future Running Man universe. And I'm like, there I am doing my scene. And then I walk out of the area that my scene's in, and I'm in like the cockpit of a plane. And then I walk out of that, and I'm in like a newsroom. Like, even though my scenes didn't take place there, but it was just like all of that on the soundstage, fully built out. I mean, it's incredible the amount of talent that people outside of the acting world, like all the carpenters, all the props people, everybody that's building sets, like it's incredible to just immerse yourself in that world. And just, I mean, absolute dream come true to be part of the project. And then I got to go to the cast and crew screening before the movie came out, which was nice. It was down at the Odeon in London, where they do the premieres, and 700 people, packed into there. Everybody that's been part of this movie for different parts of that journey. When they filmed in Bulgaria, they filmed in London, they filmed all up in Glasgow, and so they're all there, and you're getting to see one of the first versions of this film. And it was great because Edgar Wright stood up in front of everybody. He was like, "Hey guys, thanks for all the hard work, for the many months you've put in. It's so great to finally see this come together." I've got two quick just announcements of two people that have seen this movie already before you guys. I'm really sorry about that. One person was Arnold Schwarzenegger, where we invited him out to the screening room, and Glenn Powell and I, were outside, and Arnold went in, and so this is obviously coming from the voice of Edgar Wright, and and Arnold comes out, and he's like, "Oh, guys, I really loved it. That must have been so hard to make." Part of my Arnold impression, but
Right.
like getting that kind of gold seal of approval
Yeah.
on the film from the guy that really kind of made that character originally. And then he said the other person that got to see it was Stephen King, uh, before anybody else. And Stephen King had sent Edgar a text message. Edgar read it, for everybody, and like it was just amazing to go like, I know Stephen King doesn't necessarily like all of his adaptations of things. Like, he's been a prolific writer for so long, and there's been some great stuff that's been made for Stephen King source, and there's been some bad stuff as well. Like, and he's not a fan of all the stuff, but he's accepting of it. It's that person's that, but he gave his gold seal of approval and said, absolutely phenomenal job, and it was great to really kind of hear that. And then the movie got to roll. We get to all watch the movie, and you know, obviously the whole time I'm like, I hope I didn't get cut from the movie. Like it's a small scene, but I'm like, I've been telling, and I was reluctant to even tell many people. Like I told, close family, like, hey, I filmed for The Running Man, but I couldn't go and like put it out there publicly because it would just be embarrassing if I said, hey, I'm in The Running Man, and then I'm not because they decided to cut it because they needed to save some time on the film or the scene didn't make sense. But it was great. I mean, got to see myself in this massive production. There was also, and this was like a little bit of kind of personal satisfaction. There was one line that on the day of filming, I improved the line. Kind of we were all kind of kicking out ideas every time we'd like, do different takes and we'd do say something else. And that one line, the improv line, made it into the movie as well. And it actually got, I mean, it got a huge laugh in the cinema at the time. And it was good. It was a good feeling because I've done live theater before, and live theater you get immediate feedback from the audience. Like you've put so much work into a character, and the audience can reward you with their applause, right? But the film and TV work, you don't necessarily get that feedback. You just go, hey, I did it. And then every once in a while, if somebody's seen it, they'll go, oh yeah, you were in that. I really, loved that. And it's so minimal, but like to know and get that kind of that laughter, in something you created, something you made up on the day, made it into the movie. And it just is like, almost like, yeah, I did that, and it's it feels good, and I've gone to see the movie myself a few times. It's actually a very well done movie, film. For those that will yell at me for calling it a movie, it's a very well done film, and it was funny because I get to see myself on the IMAX for the first time in my life, and go, here I am, I've made it, and it's
Yeah.
interesting because with The Running Man, although it is the biggest production I've done, it's kind of like in the world, and you see it in so many like sports, for instance, where you have like different divisions of like you've climbed to this double A, triple A, and professional. Like being on The Running Man, kind of it elevated me to this kind of next level of production, which was great. But now I'm in that, and I just got to kind of continue to climb the ranks of hopefully a bigger role next time, hopefully a main role in a bigger production. Because there's just and not that there's any knock on smaller productions. It's just, you kind of can't continue on. Like I've done a lead role in an indie film, and now I've done a smaller role in a bigger budget. And I'm just like, you just got to keep that momentum. And that's a tough thing in the industry because at any point that can derail. But it is, being on The Running Man, in The Running Man, I mean, it is a dream come true. I mean, without a doubt. And knowing that like the director is such a beloved director. I've loved a lot of his work for years. Being able to work directly with him. The scene I'm in was with Glenn Powell, who's from the lead actor of The Running Man. He was also in Top Gun Maverick. He was in Twisters. He's in the new Chad Powers TV show. If anybody seen
Mm.
that, great actor. I mean, definitely the star quality. This is his big kind of come out movie as an action hero, and very well. I mean, he's kind of following the path that he very well could be the next like Tom Cruise. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he took over the Mission Impossible franchise when Tom finally hangs it up. Which I wouldn't be surprised. And you heard it here first, maybe.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing that film first and foremost. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm certainly going to. It's on my list. It must be nerve wracking as an actor, like you said, to film scenes, and you really don't know if they're going to be cut or not before the finished product comes out. Yesterday I interviewed actor Anthony Forrest, who appeared in the original Star Wars film, and he filmed several scenes with Mark Hamill. His character name was the Fixer, and none of those scenes were used. So you just never know. Now obviously he went on to become one of the stormtroopers, and move along.
Yep.
But just you never know if those things are going to be cut, and sometimes they went so well that you're like, oh, that that's not going to be cut. There's no way. But due to time constraints or whatever the reason may be, it could happen, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And you just don't know. I mean, obviously, at some point, if as your role gets bigger into films, you kind of can rest easy, going, all right, well, even if they cut a bunch, I should still be in it. And actually, it was surprising because I did a movie a couple of years ago with James Franco, Hey Joe, which is a really just well done drama. Um, Check it out. I think it'll actually be in North American cinemas at the end of this year, if not early next year. They just got distribution rights for it. But when I went out to the premiere for that in Italy, I flew from London to Rome, and again, I'm like, I hope I'm in it. I hope I didn't get cut. But one of the scenes, thankfully, was a very important piece to the story, that to drive the story forward. But what is unfortunate is one of the actors I did work with, and he was in considerably more of the film than I was. They actually cut all of his scenes out. Like, he was just completely not in the film anymore.
Wow.
And it just kind of, again, more likely than not, just came down to pacing. They tried to just keep the story moving, and I did about twice the amount of scenes. I filmed more scenes than I was in. So any scene that I shared with this other actor, those scenes were cut for me, because it just didn't make sense to have this guy that nobody knew who it was, in the film interacting with me. So like my number of scenes got cut in half compared to
Sure.
where
Sure.
what I filmed. And it was funny because, like, I think it was like maybe like 11 minutes into the film where, based on where the story was, I knew that was my last scene. And I was like, I flew out to Rome, did the red carpet, got to attend, which is just amazing. And then I sat there and I was like, all right, well, that's the end of my involvement for like 11 minutes. But it's still great to, obviously be a part of it. But, you know, again, you expect what you filmed, and then they have to, in post. You just don't know what happens in the editing room. And, I've been on that side of the fence as well, where you're just like, this made sense on paper, this made sense filming it, and then now when you've got the whole thing put together and you're looking at like a 3.5 hour movie, you're like, all right, what can we get rid of? We
Yeah.
have to, because if we're not keeping that pacing going, the audience is not going to like it.
Right. Well, I mean, it's like a puzzle. It's like a big puzzle. All these little pieces, whether it's big or small, they all come together and become your body of work at the end of the day. So, the size of the role doesn't really matter. It's more of the quality and the opportunity, to keep it moving.
No, absolutely. I mean, it goes without saying, is, they say there's no small roles, only small actors. So, you can bring whatever you can to that role, and put everything into it. I mean, it is a tough, thing, because people that aren't in the industry, you know, that's why when I caveat that and I say, oh, it was just a small role, it wasn't. I mean, in my own head, I'm going, yeah, like, I'm in it. I don't care. Like, I could walk on and just go, hey, and I'm part of that universe. But, like, I do say it only because, there are times. I mean, and it's tough to hear, like, when you're like, oh yeah, I was in this, and they're like, oh, you were barely in it. But I was in it. Like that matters. Like, that's still, and even stuff that I've auditioned for. Like, I look at things like, if I went back, like I started at the beginning of this interview, and I said I was 8 years old when I kind of had these inklings of wanting to act, and didn't pursue it for decades. But if I went back to 8-year-old me and said, hey man, guess what? You auditioned for Masters of the Universe. You didn't get it, but you were in the room, and you were this close, and it could have happened. 8-year-old me would have been like, wow, I job well done. I mean, probably not in those terms, but, like, still, like, that, like, realization of going, like, you're living the dream that I once had, and you finally got there. And it took a long time and a lot of pain and effort, but you got there. And so,
Yeah.
like, that's even just being invited to perform at any point. Like, Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad said,
Yep.
just being invited to audition, like, that's your job. like that you should feel accomplished, because anytime you as a performer get the chance to show your craft, to show your art, to use your tool in front of anybody else, you should just be honored that anybody else wants to see it. And like it really it is. I mean, there's a piece to it, just going like, I was in the room with, you know, great directors. Even if I didn't get the role, like they got to see me. They've asked me, out of millions of people that are out there as actors, they asked me to perform for them. And it is such an honor to just, be part of that kind of entire magic of cinema, and to be part of anything that can move somebody. I once did an audition for a commercial that I didn't end up getting, but it was the first time in any of my auditions. I've never had it before or since. I got a full round of applause from everybody in the room, like in a casting. And I was just like, funny that I didn't get the role. But again, that's where, it was for an advert and everybody has to align on it. But like, it was just like, I got to perform for these casting directors. I got to perform for, the brand itself. Like this director got to see it. And like, it's an honor to be able to bring, you know, hundreds of hours of training and hard work, and what is now my life's work, my life's goal, to bring that to somebody, and just say, hey, let me show you what I can do. And that is an honor to me above all else. See, whether I ever book another job again, but being able to just deliver a piece of art to somebody in the form of this, this medium, and just go, hey, thanks for watching, guys. Like, it's been an honor for me more than it has been for you.
You've also appeared on John Carpenter's Suburban Screams. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so that was a wonderful experience. Again, being able to work under the name of such a prolific director. Now, with John Carpenter, he directed a lot of that from on a Zoom, to be honest. So over, because in California, and this may not be true, so don't run with it, but this is what I heard. He would have flown out, but if he can't have a cigarette, because he is a very big smoker, if he can't smoke, he doesn't go. And so that long plane ride to where the filming was in Prague, this is what I've heard, is like he would have been there on site, but he couldn't smoke on the plane. So he doesn't travel unless he has the ability to smoke, and that's a long plane ride. But he directed a lot from on Zoom, and there was another in-person director on site. It was done in Prague. It was Suburban Screams is an anthology series that's on Peacock Network, which is NBC's streaming platform. It's also on Sky Network for anybody that's UK based. But every episode has its own storyline based upon a true story. I'm one of the lead actors in episode 2, which is great. It was based upon a serial killer from the 1980s that terrorized a small town in Canada. And so it was done in Prague because a lot of Prague is, number one, cheaper to film in, but also because of the old Soviet style that never really changed. It still can kind of showcase a 1980s vibe to it, because things never really modernized in a lot of their older government buildings. So we filmed a lot of it in an old government building that we converted into like what looked like a newspaper office. And then a lot of scenery was done out in the Prague countryside and stuff like that. So it was a great experience, really kind of bringing a real person to life, which was, again, as an actor, is a little bit different, because you don't get to just be completely how you interpret the character, because it is grounded in a sort of reality, because you're portraying a real person. And so, this guy existed, and he's still alive. He was terrorized by the serial killer. Lost his wife, lost his house, like, all this stuff. I mean, like, and he was the editor of the local newspaper, and I had to portray him. And so I did as much as I could, finding any type of source material, which is minimal, because A lot of it was in the 80s and early 90s whenever he did interviews. So it's very rare to find stuff even uploaded to YouTube now. But that was, as an actor, it really helped me kind of just bring something else to life. The guy was a chain smoker, which was hilarious because on set, one day on, they're prop cigarettes, so they're not full nicotine, full tobacco, but they're clove kind of herbal cigarettes. And on one day, I smoked 36 of them. So, like, and anytime I went up and I would ask, like, "Am I supposed to have a cigarette in this scene?" They go, "Yes. I don't ever want to see you without a cigarette because you are a chain smoker." And that's because the character was, that's how he was. He smoked back to back, lit one off the other. So, like, yeah, I remember I smoked 36 in one day, and I went out that night with the cast and crew. We had dinner, a couple drinks. Like, I went right from set, and then I came home. Back to my hotel, and I was obviously I was drinking, so went right to sleep. The next morning, I wake up to go take a shower, and I turn the shower on. I hop in, the steam gets going, and I'm like, man, I smell like a smoked ham because all of that, you know, it was just permeating through my skin. I was like, man, I smoked a lot yesterday. And, I mean, yeah, it was, that kind of commitment, but, it's not the worst thing I've done for a role. I ate mealworms once for a different role. So, uh,
Wow.
but yeah, so Suburban Screams working again under such a prolific. I've been lucky. I mean, it's right place, right time. I mean, there's obviously more talented actors than me probably in the world. I'm striving to be the best, but I'll capitulate and I'll say there are other better actors that might have done better in the role, but I have a right place, right time to work under such um, prolific directors. I mean, working under John Carpenter, the maestro of horror. I mean, it's just I amazing. Working under Edgar Wright. I mean, like, when I'm like, these are household names for a lot of people, and being able to just do that. But yeah, that was a great experience. Getting flown out to Prague. Um, Working on that show, and I mean that was my first kind of big television show. Um, and working under John Carpenter is again another dream come true. I mean, the guy that created Halloween and The Thing, and so many unbelievable, like, what was it, They Live, that was him as well. That was such a great movie in the
That's
80s.
a classic.
Yeah, and so, like, being able to just again just one day I want to be able to, at the end of my long life, and look back and go, I got the chance to do stuff that I just never at the time dreamed I'd be able to do. I mean, even working, with James Franco a few years ago, like, I'm like, this is the guy. Now, I didn't watch Freaks and Geeks, I'll admit, but my first introduction to James Franco was in Spider-Man, in 2000, 2001, 2002,
Yeah.
as Harry Osborn. And, like, I'm like, I again, like we said at the beginning, is, when you're sitting there watching a movie, watching a film, you can go back to that memory, right? And so when I thought of James Franco, I know exactly where I was. Showcase Cinemas, Seekonk. I watched Spider Man, you know, and I saw him on the screen for the first time. And I've always been a big fan of him throughout, for his acting and stuff throughout the years. And being able to just be in a scene with him, in multiple scenes, and just there's a full improv scene I did in Hey Joe, where my script just called for us playing darts, and then his ex-wife comes bolting in and causes a scene, but, like, there wasn't really much substance to the script at the time. It was just like, hey guys, just kind of banter. And so, like, there I am bantering with James Franco, doing improv with him, and having a whole scene of improv going, like, man, if I went back again to 2001, 2002, and said to myself when I'm 18 years old, said, hey man, you're going to be in a movie with him one day, I'd be like, no way, absolutely not. And there I am doing it. And it's just, I am an absolute lover of cinema. Like, that by my whole life, I've just, I think most of my knowledge in this world that I've learned was because of movies. I'm not book smart. I'm movie smart. So if it's in the movies, I'll know it. Uh, but
Exactly.
you know, but I've always been a lover of film, and it's incredible to be able to just go like I'm now part of that process. And especially entering it so late in life. I think I was 37, just entering acting. Not, I mean, you see a lot of it where people are like, oh, they got their big break late in life, right? And that's, they may have grinded for 15 years, but like I entered acting at like 37. So it wasn't too long ago, and I was just like, the unfortunate part, they say like you can never get into acting too late. Absolutely, you can't. Any age, there's always a role for you. But what I look back on now is go, there's certain roles I'll never be able to play, and that's the downside of it. Like I can never play a college kid ever. Like, I can never go back and be, in my early 20s, like just to play roles of that caliber. I would have to play, fathers and bosses and stuff like that, like, you know, that are within my playing age. So that's my only regret, I guess, is that like I missed out on some of those opportunities because I entered so late, because I had trepidation as to whether I belonged, whether I was good enough, whether I could do it. I obviously, a lot of conflicting priorities in life, and thankfully I've made that leap, and all I can do is just put the pedal to the metal, foot down, and drive on, and just do the best I can to get back to that spot that I wanted to get to many years ago.
Well, I feel like you've made up for it. Starting a little later in life, you've accomplished so much in a short period of time. So, think about it, another 3, 4 years from now. I mean, you could attach your name to so many more projects. We just don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. For anybody watching, I'm easy to manage. All I need is some food and water out. I'll do whatever.
No blue M&Ms or anything, or
There's no crazy rider. All I ask, Coke Zero. That's
uh, easy
and
enough.
it is funny because like I will sometimes, depending on the production, they will ask me like, oh, is there any special food, dietary requirements? I'm like, hey, it's not a big deal. I can get it myself. But if you guys have Coke Zero, like, like I'm not, and if not, like, I'll buy some myself and bring it in because
Yeah.
but otherwise I'm pretty easily manageable on set. I don't eat like when I'm filming and stuff. So like that is always like I'm a big, like I fast throughout the entire day as long as I'm filming, because food affects my performance. It may not be the same for everybody, but like, like when you take a break and you go get lunch, and then people come back from lunch, and then you kind of get lethargic, and like you're not bringing the same energy you were before because the food is getting just naturally processed. You're digesting it. So for me, I just kind of found that like on filming, and it sucks sometimes because like, sometimes we can, we'll start early in the morning and wrap super late at night. And I just don't eat during the whole day. I won't. But Coke Zero gets me through the day. So keeps my energy up. And that's what I go with.
That's awesome. Now, as we're winding down here, we got to get in a funny story. So, going back in time, Riverside Junior High School in East Providence, Rhode Island. This was probably 1997, 1998. You and I are in gym class, and the teacher is Mr. Noel, who was an odd man, and he always had strange requests. Like today, we're going to play water polo. Well, we don't have any water, but we're still going to play water polo. Or let's run around the track in front of the school. It's only 98 degrees today, so we'll do that maybe 30, 40 times. So that's exactly where we found ourselves. We're running around that, and we're picking on each other. Just kind of messing with each other as we're going around. I remember, and maybe some, it kind of heated a little bit. Where everybody's kind of probably frustrated out there, but we're picking on each other. And one thing led to another. We end up getting in a physical altercation. and it's more of a comedy than anything. Looking back at it, it's actually a funny story that I've told many times to friends, or my mom and I have talked about it jokingly, and so we each take a swing. I remember, we kind of tussle a little bit. We start rolling down the hill, and a school bus is coming in with children from elementary school coming to check out our junior high. So they're coming by as we're brawling in the grass, and that is something I'll always remember. Of course, we both get pulled into the principal's office, and we come up with a game plan very quickly. Like, okay, we were just joking around. We'll we settled our differences immediately, and that's exactly what happened. We did get away with it, and we learned our lesson. Didn't happen again, but just a funny little story. What are your memories from that, that time
Well,
period?
you certainly sugarcoated your involvement in that start of the altercation. Um, in fact, if I remember it correctly, I was hiding behind a tree as you were coming around one of the bends, and I decided to jump out from behind the tree to scare you. And your first reaction was to kick me in the nuts.
You recall that? Yes.
And then the altercation happened where we had this tussle. Um, and at the time, so I don't want to point fingers, but I mean, yeah, jokingly jumped out and just scared you, but I didn't throw the first blow. Um, it was a kick to the nuts. But I do remember as we were on the bottom of this hill and we were just brawling it out. That's when the school bus came in, and I will take the unfortunate ownership of this as the school bus driver is yelling out her window for us to stop because these poor children and for the audience, I mean, we were in seventh grade, so we were 1 year older than them. We were not, I can't, yeah, bad stuff, but I'm not, I was not a role model at that age by any means. Uh, and so the school bus driver is screaming out her window for us to stop. You need to stop it. And I stood up and I threw her the middle finger and told her to go F herself. So So I remember it like it was yesterday, unfortunately. Um, and I do remember these poor kids that, you know, they're all glued to the window.
Right.
Like it's almost like the scared straight, like when you take the kids to prison and they're like, oh no. But you know what? Guess what? I probably proved all of those like dare videos and all those after school specials. I proved them all right. Like all the stuff we watched in elementary school to prepare us for junior high and middle school. Like kids, this is the real shit.
Yeah. Exactly
Like,
right.
you're coming to Shawshank here.
Yeah. We got to experience it firsthand. That is for sure.
No, but it was we did. I mean, I think the fun part about it is at the end of it, like when we were both going in, you and I. I mean, we just in sync. Like we were just like, nah, no, we were just messing around. We weren't fighting. Like,
Yeah.
because I mean, we were both faced with like probably 5 days of suspension, easily. If but we were just like, oh no, we were just messing around. Like it was funny because we were good friends. Like you and I, we were good friends before, we were good friends after. But that was just like such a solid memory from that time of these poor kids, and then how you and I went from just tussling around and throwing punches. I mean, full on. I mean, like beating on each other to just like no, no, no. That was just. No, it was just for fun. And we did that without like colluding. Like we both just came up with this idea like on the spot. And we are just like, no, no, no. It's just we didn't go like he did it, he did it. We just no, we were just messing around. And
Exactly.
we got out of it, and our friendship kind of just I think it became more solidified after that. We always had something to joke around about, and that kind of throwback to, hey, remember that time? But I will say, I mean, in this case, people argue Han shot first. Joe
Mm.
shot first. Joe
Oh
shot
man,
first.
That's true. Yeah, man. If that tree wasn't there that day, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. What's the funniest part about it? I didn't even know it was going to be you I was going to jump out at. I was just I don't know what went through my head. I was just like, let me hide behind this tree because I'm just a dumb kid and I'm going to jump out and go wah to whoever it is, and
Right.
it just happened to be you. And your immediate response was kick him in the nuts.
Yeah, yeah. It's a memory that I'm sure neither of us will forget for a long time. So
No, I mean I'm glad I was able to put the record straight though, because I felt like your memory might have been getting fuzzy
it
about
was
who shot
yeah,
first.
a little bit. There was a little fuzz there. Absolutely.
You've been living the last 30 years as the hero.
Pretty much. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. It all depends how you tell the story, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I've held back
So
a little bit.
yeah, it's all about the spin. You got to put the spin on it. So
Right. Well, in closing, fast forward many years from now, what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered?
you know, it's a good question. And I get asked that a lot, and ultimately I think the thing is I would love to one day be among the greats, and whether I am or not, all I can do is strive to be there. And if I can aim to be the best actor in the world, and I miss and I come close, then I'm still amongst a good group of people. And there's a saying, it's like aim for the moon, and if you miss, you'll still be among the stars, right? And so all I can do is just I have found my calling, and all I can do is just devote what finite amount of time I have on this earth in general. I mean, we as human beings, like, we have such a short life on this planet to be able to just make an impact and do something. And if even just one piece of art or something that I do can give somebody uh, an emotion, whatever that emotion is, um, that that I know that I can live on, and a legacy can go on well beyond. I've created something that will, for as long as humanity exists, what I made will be there. And it's an honor to be able to bring that sort of stuff to life. And I have a friend, not to get too much off that question, I have a friend that, like, came to me. He's not a big horror fan. And he was like, hey, I was offered this role for this horror movie, and I just don't know if I want to take it. And I was like, why? He's like, I'm just not a fan of the genre. I said, you might not be, and that's okay. But there are people that are. And just think, I mean, just the thought that, like, you could be in this film and you could be the reason that somebody goes on a first date, and they're over there experiencing your art, and you've influenced their date, and they go on and they get married and they have kids, and they can look back on it and go, hey, remember our first date, and you were a part of that. Like, that is something that is just near and dear to me emotionally. Like, what what little we can do in this world to create positivity in any way. you know I am a fan of, you know, fan interaction. I enjoy it. Like, I know a lot of actors, like, and thankfully, I mean, hopefully one day I will be at the Tom Cruise level, right? That'd be nice, or any of the big actors. And I'm sure they get bothered all day, and eventually there's a point where, hey, this is a little too much, and I just want some privacy, and it's tough. But, like, I also at the same time know that, like, I can take a selfie with somebody or give somebody an autograph that they can, is 30 seconds of my time in a day. 30 seconds, but it can have generational impact of positivity.
Right.
Grandma, tell about that time that you met Will O'Donnell, and how great he was. Oh yeah, he was so nice, and he talked to me about this, and he wished me luck on whatever it may be. And, like, that is my calling to humanity, is to be able to use myself, my instrument, my art, to create some type of emotion, and really just leave behind that legacy, and hopefully hit the moon, right? And or be among the stars. And that's where I see myself. And I have a picture. I used AI to create it. I uploaded a picture of myself, and I have a picture of me holding an Oscar. And I look at that and I go, one day. And if I aim for that, and even if I don't, and even if I don't make it that far, right, and I don't win an Oscar, if I would even be considered for it, or even be in a film where other people are considered for it, like I know, like I'm projecting that, and I'm trying to manifest that into my life of going, this is where I want to be, and if I even come close, then job well done. And I just want to look back when I'm 99 years old or older. Hopefully technology keeps me alive longer, but and be able to look back and go, you know what, you did it.
Yeah.
You could go back, an 8-year-old you that wanted to act, you can go back and go, yeah, you did it, man. Congratulations. Job well done. Like, you made your dreams come true, and you created some type of positivity in the world.
Well, Will, thank you so much for being here this week, and thank you for kind of taking a deep dive into a lot of the projects that you've been a part of. And obviously, there's so much more on the horizon, so we look forward to seeing, what's next for you. And just
Yeah,
appreciate you being here.
heading out to Cyprus next week to film a movie, and little murder mystery out in Cyprus, and then I just finished up a screenplay for a horror movie we're going into production for next year that I wrote, and it's that one's going to be really exciting. So looking
Awesome.
forward to it.
Where can
And
fans follow
thanks for
you?
they can follow me on Twitter, Instagram. I am the number one Will O'Donnell, WILLODONNELL. So, and I really do appreciate it to talk directly to fans. Any type of interaction, following me on Instagram or Twitter, and any interaction with any things I post. I'm 42 years old. It's tough to be on social media in general. Like, it's tough for me to have inventive, creative things to put. And I always go, man, I just sometimes feel lame posting this stuff, but I got to do it because that is a part of the brand. So anybody that follows me, anybody that interacts, I really do appreciate it, because oddly enough, casting directors are looking to social media to see what your influence is, because it does help. Like, acting will carry me so far, but sometimes if it's my acting, somebody else is the same acting, but they have a bigger influence. Sometimes they go that route because they know they may get more of a return out of it in the box office. And it's a struggle to try to sell tickets in today's age with so much media out there. So I really do appreciate anybody that follows me, anybody that interacts. Drop comments on it. I will do my best, but understand that I'm an older person getting older, and I'm only I'm not. I need to have, like, one day I'll have a team that just does this for me, but I'm trying my best here.
You're doing just fine. So, Will, thank you so much for being here again.
Thanks for having me. I really do appreciate it, and I'm really excited to see all the stuff you're doing too. So, great job with getting all this together, and I absolutely love it.
Appreciate it, man. For Will O'Donnell, I'm Joseph Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you guys next week.